Good morning, evening, afternoon. I'm tatocat. Welcome to my channel. Today we're playing Echoes Lucid9 Fangame. Previously, there was like this scary metal door thing, and then we're trying to figure out what's going on. And apparently, it's there because of protocol when we met Eris here, and now we're about to learn about her. All right. So, I hope you don't mind me asking, but is there a reason that you look like Clarissa from Nimbus 4? I hope you don't mind me asking, but is there a reason that you look like Clarissa from Nimbus 4? Sorry. Apologies, operative, but I currently possess no data relation to the key phrases Clarissa and Nimbus 4. Understandable. If I had 1,000,000 terabytes of storage free, the powers that be would probably still want me to save work stuff and nothing else onto it. Seriously. One time I was using my phone and tried to download the 1972 version of Ping from this corporation's intranet game store. After that, I got a red error message and was told by an automated text message that I could rent a gaming laptop at any WayForward's secure tech depots in District 2. Not buy either. Rent. Apparently, staying out of Limnitskate's reach requires me to cough up 100,000 in a year just so I can play a single fucking 70-year-old game when I'm bored. Right, sorry. I should probably tell you what Nimbus 4 is. Basically, the Nimbus series is a bunch of first-person shooter video games that are set in space, where humanity is at war with this super religious alien empire. And at the beginning of the first game, they find an ancient alien superweapon hovering in the atmosphere of a gas giant that humanity's enemy calls the Nimbus for some reason. Maybe they speak Latin. Fuck if I know. Anyway, the main character is this super soldier that everyone just calls Master Sergeant, even though his rank isn't unique, and there's an AI that lives in his head named Clarissa, who's an exact copy of the brain of the scientist slash mother figure who abducted him as a kid and raised him to fight terrorists, even though he ended up fighting aliens, which he was prepared for, I guess. Anyway, they blow up the Nimbus, find another Nimbus, blow that up, and then travel outside the galaxy to blow up all the Nimbuses. Since there aren't any Nimbuses left, by the fourth game, Master Sergeant and Clarissa end up fighting this genocidal alien general named the Pedantic. Clarissa's character design always involved her being somewhat blue and looking like she tried to get dressed and only made it halfway through the process. A barcode bikini, essentially. When Nimbus 4 came out, they decided to take both characteristics to the extreme to offset the fact the writer planned to kill her so they could make her a crazy space dictator in Nimbus 5. It's worth mentioning that they almost completely forgot that 5 existed in Nimbus Unlimited, which ironically took 8 years to develop and still released as buggy, unfinished, and still released as a buggy, unfinished mess. This poor robot thing, hologram person. You have no idea what I'm talking about, do you? Speaking subjectively, that would be the case. But your explanation has increased my knowledge of the narrative universe by a factor approaching infinity. Thank you, operative. The level of context at my disposal is now such that I can parse your initial inquiry into a series of workable directives. Do you wish to know more about the aesthetic design of my remote user interface? Might as well. I've got some time to kill anyway. But can you tell me about your current form? Are you familiar with the Advanced Medical Services Restructuring Initiative of 2029 through 2039? I read about it a few months back. WayForward had 30 nurses for every doctor, thanks to med students across Japan defaulting on their student loans. The AMSRI was an attempt by the brass to fix productivity issues caused by the lack of extensive trained personnel. Not that being a hospital doctor back then was fun, either. You'd have to be built like a brick shithouse to willingly toss yourself into the streets, into the stress, fatalities, suicides, and 20-hour workdays. The only people willing to expose themselves to that were already done basic training by the time anyone asked them for help. Thanks to my implants, I could survive 14 hours a day for months on end. But during my brief medical career, I can't remember a time when any other doctor on the ward was ordered to do more than 10. Guess I was too worried about the money running out to ever think about how lucky I was to get paid overtime. Not that extensive thought would do me any good, though. I could not have surmised it better. Summarized, not surmised. Anyways. I could not have summarized it better, operative. You may already know that during the course of this initiative, numerous nurses were retrained as physicians through the use of corporate funding. By 2040, the proportionality of active duty nurses to doctors had decreased to 10% of its former estimate, and the initiative was deemed a resounding success. Unfortunately, the success of the AMSRI produced consequences of its own. In order to ensure maximum return in investment, the Way Forward Corporation's board of directors placed applicants for the initiative through rigorous testing process in order to gauge their relative stress tolerance. Unlike SSD operatives such as yourself, the applicants were not augmented, meaning they had to rely on their own biology in order to be retrained without incident. As nurses, their profession was also in relatively low demand, leading to extreme job insecurity as professionals in the field of medicine services. Based on my analysis of your central nervous system, the artificial coprocessors implanted in your frontal lobe and hippocampus were likely crucial in ensuring your high efficiency performance in the academic environments you were exposed to as a physician in training. For these applicants, this was not so. What was deemed crucial for them were factors such as stress tolerance, nutrition, cardiovascular integrity, sustenance, cognitive functionality, sleep hygiene, and their ability to maintain optimal levels of these characteristics during periods of sustained economic output. And how exactly did we test their ability to maintain optimal levels of these characteristics? Basic eligibility for the initiative required the completion of 12 consecutive 80-hour work weeks without sustaining long-term brain damage at the ends of each of these weeks. Applicants were screened and selected based on the disparity of health between them and a control group. Exhausting our own people to conclusively prove they can take the beating we give them. I can't say I'm surprised by that. Large corporations leading employees dry and unsustainable working conditions has been the norm ever since the first seeds were planted in the earth. Today, people are more common and replaceable than ever, and their desperation makes them easy to control by whoever can offer them a subsistence wage. In this economy, the frontrunners have consolidated their power to a point where there's no viable alternative to working for them, and by purely legal means, no manner of viable recourse against them. So you're saying that we whipped them hard, examined them, and kept whipping them until we could isolate the few people left with a bit of skin on their bodies? Banning the volunteer status of all applicants tested, that analogy is largely accurate. Being fucked any other way is a great incentive to volunteer. It's just a shame it requires getting chewed up by the industry and being left with an expiration date that life itself doesn't even have the decency to identify. So then, did the trouble start there? Or did it have to get even worse before someone noticed? Negative. As the initial evaluations were largely devoid of fatalities, few considered the program an issue. Largely? Indeed. During the evaluation, 13.2% of employees assessed unfortunately passed away due to pre-existing health conditions. The rest, however, met initiative's requirements and promptly began their extended training after receiving whatever treatment they needed. Contrary to popular belief, the problems caused by the initiative's implementation were not due to employee exhaustion's fatalities, but rather the selection of applicants on the basis of stress tolerance. The interdisciplinary of of approved applicants showed proportional bias towards. I have no idea what the rest of it says. This left a major manpower vacuum in the aforementioned fields, exacerbated by the fact that all were evidently high-stressed environments. Wow. Being surrounded by dying people who can't fucking leave is bad for the mind? Color me surprised. So everyone left over had to pick up the slack? Indeed. While personnel from overstaffed fields were transferred to understaffed fields, an immediate term lack of properly trained nurses did little to reduce the workload of the remaining original nurses in affected departments. The length of an average workday had risen dramatically among these nurses, which caused many to demand a more efficient solution. Eventually, WayForward's board of directors came to the conclusion that developing synthetic android nurses would be the most effective way to resolve the labor shortage that this corporation faced. This resulted in the Agent Project of 2032, which integrated 150,000 prototype units of a lightweight humanoid chassis with conversational behavioral AI modules capable of deep learning upon interaction with human patients. So, robot nurses, basically. In lay terms, yes. How bad was the fallout from management? How so, operative? You know, layoffs, severances, straight up employee sackings with no ceremony whatsoever. I'm no spear throwing technophobe, but even I understand that automation is cheaper and more efficient than keeping warm bodies on payroll. I can see the importance of the workmachines too, but if corporations cut people loose and hire the scissors, that sets a dangerous precedent for society. But the real danger is when the risk is overlooked by the excess at the top of the pyramid. Either way, I can't imagine everyone kept their jobs once the prospect of a digital workforce became viable. Then you'll be pleased to know that employee termination in the nursing sector reached an all-time minimum after the agents began their partial rollout. The resistance to physiological stress present in employed agents was taken into account, and measures were enacted to ensure that they did not improperly replace the organic counterparts. Chief among this was firmware, precept that prevented them from taking over the duties of a human employee if they were deemed qualified, wished to perform those duties themselves, or worked less than 8 of the past 24 hours. The Office of Cybersecurity Operations also stepped in to ensure that the agents' AI cores were Turing negative and incapable of networking, in compliance with the ISAMU's Artificial Intelligence Development Act of 2039. For added predictability, the Oath of Hippocrates and the Asimov's Law were installed in all of WayForward's AI systems. Their core decision-making precepts and they reduced their operating effectiveness subhuman standards if the ratio of employed human nurses to agents dropped below 3.322. Maximum efficiency was possible, operative, but only on a technicality. Allowing the agents to operate at full capacity would defeat the purpose of their existence as robotic assistants to the people of this corporation. When humanity has no reason to suffer and die for the sake of productivity, the individual human becomes useless and a waste of resources, justifying their elimination under human logic, but in a manner that is unacceptable to human morality. The only resolution to this paradox is voluntary extinction, and it is my assessment that you have not evolved sufficiently to see the existential merit in destroying your own species. Evolved or suffered? Based on the data available to me, I have concluded that the two are mutually inclusive. However, I believe that the people of this corporation would do better in their own lives to not accept my conclusions, as knowledge of humanity's true worth may lead them to betray their own operating. I'm not even going to try to read it. Are you referring to the values of the people in charge, or the values of the people who answer to them? A human is a human. I see no distinction between the groups you've specified beyond the authority they possess. Then that makes you smarter than most of them. These agents you mention, I'm guessing you're designed based off theirs? Quite loosely, but yes. My holographic projection shares a digital model of the Type 01 female agent chassis. Agents present in 6 female and 2 male variants were also tinted a light blue, so they could be distinguished from their human counterparts at a considerable distance. Allegedly, this was done to relieve fears of android infiltration held by some human employees in the sector. Frankly, I was not aware that androids could infiltrate. Now that I am, the probability of such a human fear manifesting in self-perpetuating cycle around my hardware seems to have increased significantly. I doubt it'll be a problem down here. With what we know, I'm sure every operative in the cell has bigger things to be scared of right now. While that may soon be proven true, operative, I would advise you to keep an open mind. The biometric data sets available to me would suggest that my near massless humanoid projection is as easily as unnerving as the motorized endoskeleton and anatomically correct silicone-based composite structures that make up an agent chassis. Is it chassis or chassis? Wait. I thought people were worried about the agents infiltrating them. That is correct, operative. Wouldn't being anatomically correct make that easier? Come to think of it, it would make quite a few things easier. The kind of things best not discussed in a work setting, or, in my case, thought about. I can already picture that internet dog bonking me on the head with a club. Just out of curiosity, whose idea was it to build the agents like this? According to the company records, the construction of the first anatomically correct agents was initiated by the executive order of Chairman Kosuke Saito. Well, at least the old timers not posting rage fuel on 3chan. But yeah, I should probably change the subject before this line of discussion ends up burying the needle on the moist meter. What else should I talk to this almost holographic projection about? All that from saying, well, you kind of look like a character from a game I play. I'll start this one, but we'll have to answer the rest in another episode, I guess. Are you sure it's safe for you here? DCIS might decide to step in if they think you're a danger to their authority. Your concern for Turing negative AI such as myself is admirable, Operative. But there is no need to subjectively re-evaluate my safety. I cannot isolate any logical reasons that the Department of Corporate Intelligence of Security would have to interfere with my continued operation. Therefore, I possess no evidence that would suggest my existence is at risk. General Custer once possessed evidence that the Battle of the Little Bighorn would be the first of many successful stands. Look how that turned out. Directive received, Operative. Accessing historical records now. Loading. That's what I feel like the ... was. After half a second of silence, a look of abject horror crosses Eris's face. Oh my. It appears that his forces were not prepared for heavy resistance. It does tend to happen when you attack someone's home and when someone's homeland as a country that fought for its independence. One would think America wouldn't make that mistake so often. You could say the same thing about leaving the economy in the hands of privately owned, unregulated financial institutions and expect them to not fuck it up. But one depression apparently wasn't enough for the developed world. For 10,000 years, the greatest threat to humanity's continued existence has been our own ignorance and overconfidence. That is until we started fucking around with atoms. I see, Operative. Do you believe my predicament is a similar one? Well, we'll see what Rui's thought is on that in the next episode.